It's Meitantei Pretty with our very special guest, JETT Senpai! I should cut it out before Disney copyright strikes me. Our tale begins pretty much exactly where we left off last time. Anna has just realized she's stuck in the year 1999, and she's freaking out, as one might expect. Well, mostly. There is one moment where she's happily info-dubbing to Mikuru about the building she lives in, only to jump right back into panic mode when she realizes the building is still under construction because it's not the current year anymore. During this scene, Anna once again says that she would never tell a lie, just like she said last episode. This isn't the last time this episode Anna says this either, and we do get confirmation later this episode that Pretty Cure is in fact supposed to be a secret. How did Mikuru find out about their existence despite not yet being a member of the Kyoto Detective Agency? That's purposefully left as a mystery to be solved at a later date. Regardless, Anna will probably have to break her no-lying streak if she wants to keep Pretty Cure a secret. Anyways, Anna's worried because she needs to make it back to 2027 in time for her birthday party. Except, if Anna gains the ability to return to 2027, who's to say exactly when in 2027 she has to return to? As far as we know, once she figures out how, there's nothing stopping her from time traveling forward in time to the moment right after she initially time traveled back. Anna does eventually seem to realize this, but it makes sense that she doesn't right now because she's not exactly in a calm state of mind. Mikuru doesn't know how to solve Anna's time travel problem, so she takes Anna to the one place that she knows that can, the Kyoto Detective Agency, which she was trying to join last episode. And here is where we meet the guy from this episode's title. Meet the sole remaining member of the Kyoto Detective Agency, JETT Senpai, a yellow, cat-like fairy who spends most of his time in human form. Well, his actual name is Jet, but the main characters in the official website call him JETT Senpai, Senpai being an honorific like Mr. or Mrs. except solely used for people who are your superiors or upperclassmen. So, JETT Senpai is what we will be calling him too. JETT Senpai is a pretty standoffish fellow who doesn't understand why these two kids are barging in here, but he takes an interest once he sees Pochitan, whom he instantly recognizes as a space-time fairy. When I did a video about the Meitantei website before the show started, I thought that the website was saying Pochitan was the space-time fairy, not a space-time fairy. Turns out, Pochitan isn't the only space-time fairy out there, though they are pretty rare. In my defense, Japanese doesn't have articles like a or the, so I had to make my best guess. The show doesn't explain how JETT Senpai was able to instantly tell Pochitan was one of the rare few space-time fairies. Do all space-time fairies look like pink and purple bears like Pochitan? Whatever the case is, there's a scene where everyone is eating lollipops together. This scene actually takes place before JETT Senpai meets Pochitan, but this is my video, and I get to decide what order I describe the scenes in. Well, let's talk about the scene for two reasons. 1. The color of the lollipops might be significant. Anna's lollipop is purple and Mikuru's lollipop is pink, which makes sense since these are both their theme colors. So you'd expect JETT Senpai's lollipop to be yellow, right? Or maybe even teal since that's the color of his shirt. But no, his lollipop is red. Maybe it's just a coincidence. Or maybe JETT Senpai will eventually transform into the 5th Pretty Cure, but he'll be a red cure for who knows what reason. This would be interesting since we haven't had a red cure since 2021. It also wouldn't be completely unprecedented for a character to suddenly gain a theme color out of nowhere when transforming into a Pretty Cure. The standout example is Cure Earth from 2020's Healin' Good Pretty Cure. Looking at her civilian form, you'd guess that she was a green cure or a teal cure, maybe even a yellow cure. But nope, turns out she's a purple cure. Well, that was a long-winded and probably useless tangent. Back to the show. The second reason I wanted to talk about the lollipop scene is because it's here we find out Anna, Mikuru, and JETT Senpai's ages. Anna is 14 years old, which is the age of most Pretty Cures throughout the series. Mikuru is 13 years old, but she'll be 14 soon. Given that this part of the episode takes place on April 2nd and her birthday is canonically April 22nd, that checks out. JETT Senpai, on the other hand, is 222 years old. He looks way younger than that, though. Younger than Anna and Mikuru, even. But as it turns out, my theory that he would be older than he looks turned out to be correct, unless he's lying for whatever reason. There's no reason to doubt him, though. It wouldn't be the first time Yuki Kaji has voiced a blonde, green-eyed character who's hundreds of years old but looks like a little boy. Note, I have never watched The Seven Deadly Sins, and given what I've heard about the anime, I don't ever plan to. Speaking of voice actors, Yuki Kaji's voice as Jet Senpai is clearly being done by a fully grown man. He doesn't do a high-pitched effeminate voice like Ayumu Murase did as Tsubasa/Cure Wing in 2023's Hirogaru Sky Pretty Cure. That being said, since Jet Senpai is not actually a child, it isn't jarring for him not to sound like one. His voice is just barely androgynous enough that it isn't exactly dissonant or anything. Okay, I actually lied to you. There is a third reason I wanted to talk about the lollipop scene. We find out in this scene that Mikaru's pendant that she uses to transform is a gift from her grandma, and she's been carrying it around with her ever since. It didn't just magically appear out of thin air like I thought it did in my episode 1 review. My bad. Alright, back to the subject of Pochitan. Jet Senpai tells Anna that it was Pochitan who brought her back in time using their space-time fairy powers. Somehow, Jet Senpai is able to tell that Pochitan wasn't always a baby, and only became one after using their powers to time travel himself and Anna. Maybe this is a common occurrence for space-time fairies when they use their powers? Well, whatever. According to Jet Senpai, Pochitan can't bring Anna back forwards in time because they're a baby. To return to 2027, Anna will have to use a Makoto Jewel to bring Pochitan back to their original age so they can get their powers back. Unfortunately for Anna, Makoto Jewels are very rare, so I guess she'll just have to take the slow way back to 2027 if you know what I mean. Oh wait, they got a Makoto Jewel last episode, so they just use that. And it doesn't change Pochitan at all. All that happens is that Pochitan uses their mysterious grab bag of fairy powers to turn it into a bottle of Makoto milk, which they drink. Then Pochitan burps and it sounds like they're farting. Jet Senpai concludes that they need to gather more Makoto Jewels in order to re-age Pochitan out of babyhood. How many will it take? I'm placing my bets now. They'll finally get enough of Makoto's juicy fluids into Pochitan's mouth by the time the mid-season climax rolls around. But at that very moment, the Phantom Thieves Guild is preparing a powerful, all-out assault, and the only way for Pretty Cure to be powerful enough to save everybody is for Pochitan to use their Makoto-induced power to beef the Cures up. Anna is forced to make a sadistic choice: leave everyone in 1999 to die, or give up her chance of finally going back to 2027. Anna, of course, chooses the latter, and they all go back to square one, only reaching the Makoto milk threshold at the very end of the show. Oh yeah, we also find out that there aren't any Pretty Cures anymore. Or at least there weren't any until Cure Answer and Cure Mystique showed up last episode. So there goes my theory from last episode about there being a new batch of Meitantei Pretty Cures every single year. In fact, due to the lack of Pretty Cures, the Kyoto Detective Agency is on the verge of shutting down. Which leads me to wonder, why did Mikaru mention a class of 1999 last episode? This comment implied that there was a new batch of detectives every year, but if they aren't Pretty Cures, then what are they? If they're just ordinary civilians who happen to be detectives, why does the Kyoto Detective Agency have to shut down? Adding to the questions, it turns out there was a mysterious Pretty Cure around just a few months ago, but she disappeared without a trace. Now this is a mystery that seems purposefully left to the audience. And not only that, we find out later this episode that this was in fact just one Pretty Cure, and that there being only one is the norm. Jet Senpai seems to find it unusual that there are now 2 Pretty Cures at once. This is a pretty interesting development. It reminds me of Heart Catch Pretty Cure. In that season, there was a long history of cures before the main characters showed up, and they each only existed one at a time. The pattern was broken with the main characters, who eventually became a team of 4. It seems like Meitantei is going a similar route. Also, who exactly was this mysterious Pretty Cure who up and disappeared? So far, I can think of 2 candidates: Cure Arcana Shadow, the evil cure from the opening theme, and Cure Claire, the complete mystery from the website and promotional material. I suppose we'll find out the mystery cure's identity later on in the show. In the meantime, Anna and Mikaru tried to convince Jet Senpai that they're Pretty Cures, but he isn't having any of it. They could just transform in front of him and instantly prove him wrong, but just then the clock strikes 5 or something, and Mikaru has to head back right then and there to her dorm. I guess she lives at a dormitory school. I don't think the franchise has ever had any of those except for Go Princess Pretty Cure back in 2015. Anyways, why she can't even spare a fraction of a minute to transform and prove JETT Senpai wrong is beyond me. So, Mikuru orders JETT Senpai to let Anna sleep at the Kyoto Detective Agency for the evening. Her strong will is admirable, but why is she ordering him around? This whole time, she's been nothing but eager to work at this agency, and now she's trying to boss around the person who will decide whether or not she gets in? Maybe Mikuru doesn't believe that JETT Senpai is a kid, otherwise this doesn't make much sense. For some reason, despite being a grump, JETT Senpai takes this lying down, and he does in fact let Anna couch surf at the detective agency. There's this scene where we hear her talking about Mikuru in her sleep, and JETT Senpai remarks that her head is always full of Mikuru. She's obsessed with her, and they haven't even known each other for a full 24 hours. These people have got to be lesbians. Unless it turns out that Mikuru is Anna's mom after all, in which case, no. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. We cut to the dawn of the next day. Anna and Mikuru are up bright and early to talk with JETT Senpai once again, but before they can show him their epic magical girl transformation sequence, Pochitan drags Anna off by the shoulder straps and leads them to an author who is missing her pen. Yeah, remember last video when I said that Anna and Mikuru came across that bride who was missing her tiara? I forgot to mention it then, but they didn't just randomly stumble across her. Pochitan magically sensed that the bride was missing her tiara, and dragged them over that time too. I guess this is gonna be a once-an-episode supernatural occurrence. Anna, Mikuru, Pochitan, and JETT Senpai are now at a patisserie, where they meet the author I mentioned 2 paragraphs ago. Her name is Eriza Kurusu, and she recently won a pen as a prize for a writing contest. At the patisserie, an old woman told Eriza what a fan she was of her and shook her hand, and once the handshake was over and the old woman left, Eriza realized that her pen was gone. Of course, the detectives immediately suspect that the old woman was probably the culprit, but rather than trying to rule out other possibilities, Eriza decides to call the police right then and there. Talk about escalation. Conveniently, cell service has gone down throughout the entire town. Maybe this sort of thing happened more often in the 1990s because I can't recall anything like this happening during my lifetime. I should mention that Eriza and the patisserie appear in the opening theme. Here at the patisserie, we also meet 2 other characters shown in the OP. The first is the patisserie owner, and the second is a random employee with blue hair and pronouns. All 3 of the characters we meet here have their own brief descriptions on the website where we get additional information about them that isn't in the show itself. 1. Eriza is 17 years old and goes to high school. 2. The patisserie owner, who is unnamed in the show itself, is named Taira Aki on the website, and he's fond of traditional Japanese sweets. 3. The blue-haired girl is Kureya Hoa, so far the show only refers to her by her last name, Hoa. She's 16 years old, and she works at the patisserie. Well, enough about these tres amigos. The detectives have got their lead, so Anna goes to try and find the old woman, while Mikuru continues to interview the patisserie folks for more information. Before Anna sets off, JETT Senpai gives Anna and Mikuru special devices that he invented himself. Introducing the pre-kits. They're basically cell phones, except 1, they're shaped like JETT Senpai's fairy form, and 2, they work even though the cell service is down. Why JETT Senpai would model these devices after his fairy form when he's embarrassed to be seen in said form is beyond me. But hey, it's almost certainly printing money for Toei, who I bet are selling pre-kits as merchandise in the real world. Somehow, Anna manages to find the old woman very quickly, but even faster is the woman herself, who zips away as soon as Anna starts sussing her out. It's all Anna can do to keep up with her as she chases her into a public park. Mikuru and JETT Senpai arrive on the scene rather quickly themselves. I guess the old woman didn't have time to get very far after stealing Eriza's pen, which would explain how Anna found her so easily. It doesn't seem like there's much of a mystery this time. There was only one suspect, and said suspect turned out very quickly to be the culprit. Except, the old woman has disappeared. Anna and Mikuru each went through one of the only 2 entrances to the park, so they know nobody could have entered or left the park since they got there. The old woman must be somewhere in the park, and given that at this point it's almost certain the old woman is a disguised phantom thief like last episode, Anna and Mikuru reasonably conclude that the phantom thief quickly changed their disguise. The culprit can now be any one of the people in the park. Our suspects are as follows. a random office worker, two sickeningly sweet lovers, a teenage-looking Gyaru who's chatting on the phone. All of these suspects appear at various points in the opening theme, except for the office worker who genuinely looks like a background extra. As for the other three, we'll probably see them again later in the series. It doesn't take long for our two leading ladies to figure out who done it. This isn't surprising since the mystery is significantly easier than last episode's. In fact, I was able to figure it out along with them before they revealed the answer. Yeah, remember how the cell service went out? That Gyaru being on her phone makes zero sense. Unless she's only pretending to be on her phone in order to blend in and avoid suspicion. Yep, the Gyaru is in fact Niji the Phantom Thief in disguise yet again. This means that of the three disguises we've seen him in so far, all of them have been cross-dressing. Rather than trying to make a break for it again, Niji decides to summon yet another Haninda. No Pretty Cure episode would truly be complete without the Cures fighting a giant monster after all. This time, the evil monster is made using Ediza's stolen pen. Interestingly enough, when JETT Senpai sees the Haninda, his first reaction is shouting, "What is that thing?" It seems he's never actually seen a giant monster before, which begs the question, what exactly was the previous Pretty Cure fighting? Anna and Mikuru transform at long last. Last video I praised the transformation sequence to heck and back, but I have got to talk about the background music. The sounds almost exactly like the main theme of The Incredibles. I really hope this is just a common jazz motif or something, because otherwise, this is a blatant ripoff that knocks this entire transformation sequence down several pegs. Right after the transformation, Cure Mystique points at the evil bad guys and says, "Allow me to show you my answer." This is exactly what happened in episode 1, except it was Cure Answer who did it. It's neat that they're probably going to take turns each episode saying the line. We'll probably eventually hear Cure Arcana Shadow and Cure Claire get their turns saying the line as well. Now that JETT Senpai has finally been proven wrong about the girls not being Pretty Cures, he exclaims to himself that they transformed using the Makoto jewels inside their hearts, and he thought people being able to do that was just a rumor. Which begs three questions. 1. Does everyone have a Makoto jewel inside their heart? Makoto jewels are said to be attracted to prized possessions, and the heart, being a vital organ, technically would be a very prized possession indeed. 2. Don't Anna and Mikuru transform using their pendants, not Makoto jewels? I guess those charm thingies they stick in the pendants might be Makoto jewels. They don't look the same as the one they found in episode 1, the one Niji stole in episode 2, but the Pretty Cure Wiki does classify them as Makoto jewels nonetheless. 3. If the previous Pretty Cure didn't transform using a Makoto jewel from their heart, then what did they transform with? If the previous Pretty Cure was Cure Arcana Shadow, my guess would be that she transformed with her staff. But even then, her official art from the website shows her own transformation Makoto jewel attached to her rod, and it looks a lot like the ones Cure Answer and Cure Mystique use. If the previous Cure was Cure Claire, on the other hand, the transformation device could be anything. In what little we've seen of her, we don't see any Makoto jewels on her person at all. She doesn't even have a pouch for a pendant like Answer and Mystique, or a rod like Arcana Shadow. But whatever. The Cures start fighting, and it's a well-animated scene and all. But oh no! The giant pen monster shoots a torrent of ink at a random tree, causing it to be clouded in shadow. Oh no? It's not like anything bad happens to the tree. It doesn't wither or die, nor does it start becoming evil and attacking the Cures. In fact, after the fight, it completely returns to its normal colors. Yet Niji and the Haninda act like this is an amazing show of power or something. Regardless, the Haninda ends up doing something that actually has an effect. It shoots a bunch of little projectiles at the Cures, which takes them out for a little bit. During this, Niji goes on a bit of a motive rant. Why is the Phantom Thieves Guild up to this? You see, lies give you the power to take anything you want. For instance, Niji was able to take Ediza's pen by lying to her face and pretending to be a fan of hers. That's why the guild wants to turn the entire world into a world of lies, whatever that means. And to do that, they need a bunch of Makoto jewels. So yeah, Niji, and by extension the other Phantom Thieves, are basically just evil for evil's sake. Usually Pretty Cure villains start out like this, only to get fleshed out later on in the series. Hopefully, we'll eventually see what's really the deal with Niji. Oh yeah, we also see Niji briefly put on the old woman and teenage Gyaru disguises again. At this point, it's clear that he's using magic to put these disguises on, rather than just changing clothes really fast. So anyways, the Cures are incapacitated for a bit, and who stands up to the evil Phantom Thief and his giant monster but our newly introduced character, JETT Senpai. What he says is pretty simple. They've got Pretty Cures now, so they're gonna fulfill their mission, which is to stamp out the Phantom Thieves' lies. It's honestly really impressive that a normal civilian without any means of self-defense is standing up to a giant monster. He even has the nerve to tell Niji, "Now listen here, son." That's freaking awesome. It's pretty rare in this series for an ordinary person to stand up to the villains. Haninda goes to punch JETT Senpai, but fortunately the Cures are done being incapacitated and they block the punch. Then they do their "this is our answer" attack and defeat the monster, retrieving both the pen and the Makoto jewel used to make it. Pochitan turns the jewel into milk, and we see them drink Makoto's succulent nectar. I guess this is a thing that will happen after every fight scene from here on out. Girls de-transform, give Ediza her pen back, and then return to the Kyoto Detective Agency where JETT Senpai decides, you know what, he's gonna let him work at the agency after all. To commemorate their new job offers, they're each given a pre-kit book, which is basically just a fancy magical notebook. Despite having almost the same name as the pre-kits books neither look nor function anything like the pre-kits, but they do serve as another piece of merchandise for Toei to sell in real life. Anna is now quite happy for somebody who's in fact, she's decided that even once she gains the ability to return to 2027, she won't do it until she's helped save everyone in the past from the Phantom Thieves Guild. Which makes sense because, like I said at the beginning of the video, she can time travel back whenever she wants to. And that's it! It was fun meeting a bunch of new characters and finding out more about the world this show takes place in. JETT Senpai in particular is a fun addition to the cast. He's a standoffish, grumpy blonde scientist dude who serves as the protagonist's boss of sorts, kinda like Ryo Shirogane in Tokyo Mew. That's pretty cool, huh? Well, next episode, they're gonna do some interior decorating at the Kyoto Detective Agency, and a Phantom Thief other than Niji will appear. I'll see you all next week to talk about that.